y'all that don't know me, my name's Debbie Glaze. I was the class of COVID. I think there was 5 of us that went through. Yeah, I think there was 5 of us.
Y'all started with 5, ended with 4.
Okay, 5 and ended with 4. I always wondered what happened to that last one. He's probably doing pretty good. He was a pharmacist, wasn't he, or something? But anyway, we're going to talk about raised bed gardening. I've been doing raised beds now for, I'm going to say, about 6 years. When I found out how much easier it is to grow in raised beds, and the older you get, it gets a little harder working that ground and planting and digging and fighting critters and this and that. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. This was one of our beds out at the Dewey Prairie Garden. I don't know if y'all can see. This is just an example of some of the stuff that you can grow. You can grow just about anything in a raised bed. I think that right there was cabbage. Looks like cabbage. Raised beds are usually constructed of wood or metal. The corners, you need to fasten the corners with either screws or some type of hinges just to keep them square. You can use screen or hardware cloth to cover the bottom of the bed to deter rodents. This was one of mine at home. I had cabbage and beets and a little bit of everything, but I didn't have to fight very many critters. And the only thing about raised beds, you just have to water them a little more often, especially if it's wood. You want to keep your beds level. I mean, you can set them up on an elevated ground as long as the beds themselves are level. What I did, I used twigs and limbs to help fill the bottom of the beds, to kind of add to the soil, and plus over time the limbs and twigs, they'll break down, but it doesn't take near as much soil as if you fill something up in the bottom. And you want to make sure you have some sort of irrigation, whether it's a drip or water hoses or whatever. And you want to decide what you want to grow in those beds. That right there looks like kale, and I'm not sure what the other thing is. Looks like some sort of greens. And I was growing, this is a cantaloupe. I grew cantaloupes in our raised beds out there. And they actually did pretty well. They were really pretty, and they were sweet. And these were onions from last year. We had a pretty good abundance of onions, so the only thing, you know, onions are heavy feeders, so you just got to make sure you get your soil fed and your water right, and they'll put it out for you. You want to choose varieties that's native to the area. They're just easier to grow. It's easier to grow something that wants to grow here than something that doesn't belong here, because you're usually fighting a losing battle. You want to add mulch or straw, something that'll help kind of, I call it, insulate your plants. And I say that in the heat of summer, but it cuts down on your watering. You don't have to just sit there and water as much. I think it's Ruth Stout. I love her style. She wants to mulch everything. It keeps the weeds down, and you don't have to water near as much. And they're more manageable. You want to keep your beds under 4 foot in width, because it just makes it easier to be able to reach all sides, whether you're planting, harvesting, whatever. It's just a lot easier to keep them a little narrower. But this looks like parsley. We had some dianthus growing in the center. Yeah, it was a curly parsley, a flat parsley, and then we had thyme. These were all last year's beds. And you want to personalize your space. You can put fountains, you can put wind chimes. You just want to make it yours. You want to make it enjoyable. You want it to be a place where you can go to and just enjoy being there. You don't want to look at it as a chore, because then you will never go. It's just like, no, I don't want to be there. Make it your own, enjoy it. And some vegetables that you plant in raised beds or in the ground, they're going to need support. So you need to build a trellis, especially for vining plants such as peas or cucumbers. And this is, I built a trellis out of, I think that was, no, this is a hog panel, cattle panel. They make really good trellises. You want to grow tomatoes or cucumbers, or like I said, melons, you can use stuff like that. Tomatoes, they like to be supported. And you can take bamboo, just tie it together and make like a little climbing fence for it. You can be creative, something to give them a little support. Herbs love raised beds. You can grow, I've grown just about all herbs in raised beds. And flowers, which are edible, some flowers are edible. And you can plant them with herbs or vegetables. Some of them help deter pests. This is, looks like dill. Yeah, that's dill. I think that might be elephant garlic there. Is that it?
That was it.
Short and sweet. But I think most everybody here grows in raised beds. I think. Is there anybody that doesn't? I guess we all do then. Oh, you don't. Well, what I use when I can get it is the mushroom compost from Madisonville, or soil, potting soil, container soil, and just fill it up. So, is any questions? I think everybody pretty much understands. Yes, ma'am.
If you use a mushroom compost, how long do you have to let it sit before you can use coffee? Take a while
To break down. Well, normally, well, I'm not going to say normally, but most of the time when we get it, it's already,
ready to go.
it's pretty ready to go. They say not to mix, you don't want to mix sand with your potting soil or dirt, anything, that's, because you're just taking away from your soil when you add something like sand. But you can pretty much tell if it's hot, or just by the smoking and stuff like that. But if you're worried about it, let it sit for a couple of weeks or so before you use it. But I have planted just right after I got it. Yeah, you can add stuff like that. I just wouldn't add sand. Yeah. I think they're like 3 foot. They're 3 foot, aren't they?
At most, yeah.
About 3 foot.
Well, this is about 3 foot. Maybe more, maybe even more.
8 foot. You can go 8, 16. Just
Okay, so 3 foot, 4 foot, 8 foot, right?
do what?
3 foot,
About 8.
4 foot, 8
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah. Anything else? Alrighty, short and sweet.
I don't know if everybody picked up the sheet. I had a fertilizer for vegetable sheet back here. Hopefully everybody got one. If you didn't, we'll make some more and have them out ready, or let me know you need one, I'll mail you one, whatever. It's just a little bit, and I guess, I don't know if any of you know her, some of you probably do, Linda Nichols. She's not a master gardener, but Kim invited me to Linda Nichols' presentation last year, and she and I went, and it was very cold, and we sat under blankets. But she's the one that kind of got me onto this. And for kids or grandkids, if you're gardening and you're my age, you need something that you don't have to get down on your knees.
Can you talk us a little bit louder so we can hear you over here?
Talk up, speak up.
Oh, okay. Linda Nichols is the lady that got me onto this. And I'm doing all container gardening starting this year. Last year I had 12 buckets. And I've gotten all my containers from her except for this one. This one was given to me this year. So we'll probably give it away at the end of this presentation to somebody to take home because it doesn't match what I have. Not that they have to match, but this one is a little bit taller, but they're 20-gallon buckets, I believe. I haven't measured one out, but I believe they're 20-gallon buckets. The fertilizer recipe, it fits into a snack baggie very nicely. This is the fertilizer recipe, and I just get about 25 or 30 of these bags and start filling them up, you know, one thing at a time, and then just seal them, and they're ready to go. The sea minerals, I've only been able to get off of Amazon. I've looked locally, but I've never found them, so I just order off Amazon, and I can't remember how much it is. It's not that much. And a little bit goes along with it. I mean, it's not a big bag. I do have some pictures here in a little bit that I'll show you of the sea minerals. Of course, the lime and gypsum, they come in pretty good sized bags. I got them at Tractor Supply with the fertilizer and Epsom salt. I think I got it at Walmart. Of course, you'll need your tub. And if it's a molasses tub, it will have to be cleaned out because you're going to get that sticky molasses if you don't clean it out. So depends, I guess, if you pay for your tub or you find a neighbor that has tubs that they use that you can have, but you're going to have to clean them. It's not that hard to clean if you fill them up with water and then the next day just kind of swish it around and pour them out. I haven't found any that I haven't been able to clean yet. So you're going to have your tub, and to prepare your tub, you will, right here is a little like ice cream, like an old-timey ice cream container thing. You measure at 5.5 inches, and you're going to drill a hole with a paddle drill. It's just like a flat little paddle. It's not long. And then what I have done as well, and we'll look at some pictures at the end, there's 3 holes up here at the top. Just, I think they're like a 3/8 or a 1/4 inch, but they're for ties to tie on your cage. Because your plant is going to need some support. They do get pretty good size, and we'll see some that are pretty good size. The wind blows them over, and if they're not caged, they're going to break. So, and I guess depending on where you might have your garden or where you have them set, maybe the wind wouldn't get to yours. And I haven't had any blowover yet, but Linda did have some blowover, and she said they do get damaged. So. And hers are kind of out in the open area, and mine are going to be out in the open area. I didn't bring a cage, but I did bring these little ties that go in these holes. And you just use those to stick your tie. PVC is a 1-inch PVC pipe. It's for your garden hose. And you're going to cut one end slanted, and that's the end that goes into the bottom of the tub. Right here where the hole is. You don't want it over the hole, but just kind of next to the hole. one side or the other. It's gonna make it easier because when you water these plants, you're gonna water through this right here. And when it starts running out here, no more water. So if you have this on this side and you're watering all your line of plants, you're gonna have to figure out when it starts running out on this side.
How tall, what's the length of a PVC?
Well, it's at least 1 inch taller than your bucket. And these buckets are all taller than what I use. And I prefer the thin wall. They do have a thick wall, but your garden hose kind of sprays everywhere if it's a thick wall. So that goes real close to the hole over here. And if you have more than one or two, you want to kind of set them up in your row so your holes are both this way. You know, you'll have one row and all of it, you're going to have 6 buckets in a line. You want all your holes facing each other, so when you water them, it's easy. Then you go up your next row, and you're going to have 6 more, you know, depending on how big your garden is. But that's how I've done mine, and that's how Linda suggested. She didn't do hers that way at the beginning, and she said it was really a big headache, but I think she's redone hers at this point.
Question?
So, now.
Question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you put the PVC in there, do you have that cut section facing the hole or away from the hole? Yes.
This, the angle you want to the bottom, because you want your water to run out, and it can be any way, because it's not going to fit flat on that bottom anywhere, regardless. But you want it close to that. And then this is probably your most expensive cost for these buckets, and that's your perforated black pipe. I guess they have come out with several different things that can be used. Milk jugs or gallon cans or whatever. This is what she uses. This is what I've used. I bought like a 100-foot roll or something. I mean, it was huge. It would hardly even fit my vehicle. It was so big. But I couldn't buy anything less than that. But I have talked to some master gardeners and some people that were able to get it in smaller quantities.
Where'd you get it?
Lowe's.
Okay. They carry the 6-inch now? Is that 6-inch?
Uh-huh. And so I put these, they fit pretty tight in there. I count like 21 little ridges and cut it. I put them to where, what is it, parallel to the hole, so that when you put your PVC in, it kind of helps hold that up. It holds the PVC up a little bit, because at this point, you're going to put a landscaping fabric in your bucket. And I like to use the 48 wide. I've only been able to find it in Tractor Supply. This is not 48 wide, but if you use 48 wide, it's about 48 wide and 42 length is about the size you want to use. Like I say, this bucket's a little narrower and taller than what I use. And normally, how I do it is put the, if you don't get 48 wide, put the narrowest to the PVC. And you just kind of press it down onto that black pipe that's in there. And then I use Bobo's potting soil is what I've been using, and I've had really, really good luck with it. I've used their compost. I've also used hay compost, and it works very, very well. We have cows, so we have a bunch of hay that, you know, but this BM6 at Bobo's, which, well, yes ma'am.
So what's the purpose of the fabric?
you're gonna not want your dirt down in, this is called a wicking. So what's gonna happen is, once we get this done or ready to plant, you're gonna fill the tube until the water runs out the hole. But for the first couple of weeks, you're gonna also water from the top. And once you notice the top is staying wet, it's actually wicking from that bottom up. So once the weather gets hot or warmer or however we want to turn it, you're only going to have to go out, water through this twice a week, unless you're really in a lot of sun. Or you can paint this white so it's not so dark and it won't evaporate the water. But your goal is, this is actually going to wick the water up. That's why this hole is 5.5 inches, but the corrugated pipe is 6.
Now, are the corrugated pipes this way or this way?
It's laying down flat. Yeah, it's flat in the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And you just measure to whatever width or, across. And you want them pretty tight. You don't want them to move around in there. And then you're going to put your fabric in. And I do about 5 gallons of soil at a time. And so I just dump my 5 gallons in here, and once I dump that 5 gallons, then I kind of pull my fabric out and around. If it's too tall, I kind of fold it in to the inside of the pot instead of over, because you don't want that soil, you don't want a lot of soil down here. And I have taken 2 of mine apart this year that I used last year, and I don't even think I had a 1/4 cup of dirt down in the bottom of it. It was just, the water and maybe a little bit of algae from the leftover water or whatever that was in there. But it seems to work very well for how I do it. And that way it kind of keeps and I guess you could take your scissors out there and trim it after you get it all set up. But I do it about 5 gallons at a time. I do my wheelbarrow full of soil, and then I just shovel it into 5-gallon buckets and carry it over, because once you get it full, it's real hard to move without a two-wheel wagon or some help. And I put 1 5-gallon in there, then I'll put another one. Then depends what I'm going to plant as to if I need another 5-gallon or if I just need a couple more shovels full, because sometimes you don't want it so full that when you water it, you don't want it to run down the sides. You want to water it inside. I think Linda has had some of hers, maybe going on 4, maybe 5 years now, and she hasn't cleaned out all of hers that she first used at the beginning. So they might be able to be used for several years without cleaning them out, as long as you're getting good results. Now, I think it stated on here, at the beginning of the planting season, you want to use your fertilizer in the second 5-gallon bucket of soil. You want to add this to that. Then every time you water until your first blooms, you want to add 1 tablespoon of this. That's why I make so many. You want to use 1 tablespoon of this in here before you actually put water down in there.
This is at the very initial planting.
The initial planting for your year. It's spring, fall, or whatever you're going to plant. Yes, ma'am. And like I say, you do want to water really good around the top, at least, I'd say at least a gallon. I think my water can is a 2-gallon can. But I think I've got mine now, and I've had them planted, maybe this is the 3rd or 4th week. But they seem to be wicking nicely now. So I'm not going to water from the top anymore unless I see dry spots. And if I see dry spots, then I'll start watering in that one area. But once it starts wicking, you're gonna have your water as long as you keep the water in your, and sometimes it's bright enough outside you can see where your water is, and it doesn't take a lot to fill them up. Once your blooms start, you don't want to use this anymore, just until the blooms. And once you see your first bloom, you want to change to like my bone meal is 125.0, and it decreases that foliage, the green, because this is going to promote a bunch of greenery. It will decrease the greenery or kind of stop the greenery, but it's going to increase your fruit or your blooms and kind of stop the green from growing. So you're going to have more blooms, more fruit, and then that's going to establish that strong root system in it. But you want a big, high middle number. It don't matter what the first or second one is, just so the second one is a big. If you want to promote green, if you want to plant something and it's just green and it never blooms, like maybe lettuce or spinach or something like that, you can use the bone meal, the nitrogen if you want to, but I've never had to. I've just always used this, and then for the tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that, I went to the bone meal and used it. And I put that, instead of putting a tablespoon of this every time I water, I just go to the bone meal and put a tablespoon of bone meal in here, then water. Every time. And the bone meal is like a powder, so it goes pretty far. It's not something you're going to run out of on a regular. I mean, you're going to know when you're supposed to get out. You can get some more at Walmart or Lowe's, or it's pretty available, I'm sure.
What's the purpose for the black pipe? And what's it?
The black pipe, well, for the water, for the wicking, is the one thing, because you want your water level in there high enough that it's going to reach that black to wick up into that
It's going to
soil.
stay enough.
And then, so it don't take 14 cubic feet of soil to fill up the tub.
Okay.
Because it is a lot of soil. I have never planted potatoes in one of these, but I have potatoes planted this year in my tubs, and they're already sprouting, so I just don't know how deep they're gonna go. But I did try to mound up the dirt a little more, and I made sure the fabric was a little higher than what the lip was, so when I watered at the top, I could make sure, or try to make sure not much soil got way down in there. But I don't know if it's gonna work. I see these things where people have used containers to plant potatoes and they get a good crop.
I think they have to be indeterminate, don't they? Indeterminate
I would
potato.
think so,
I think
but you
so,
know,
yeah.
I see potatoes. I
Right.
don't know that they know if they're
Yeah.
potatoes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, maybe. Well, they have a little bit to grow.
When you're doing tomatoes or something like that in one of those, is it just one plant or a couple?
Well, I've planted two, and I've planted a tomato and a pepper, and I've got some pictures in a minute, I'll show you. It just depends how bushy that tomato plant is, because I use field fencing for my cages. I make my own cages, and I use field fencing, and it's kind of small at the bottom like this, kind of rectangles, and then it kind of goes to bigger squares like this, kind of at the top. So I use the smaller squares at the bottom so deer and little stuff can't maybe get their heads through it. But I can still get my hand, or if the kids come, or, some child wants to come and help, we can still work through the fencing. If it has to be taken down, you can just snap your little ties and take it off for the day and then put it back on at night, because that, it's just 3 twist ties, so it's not like it's a lot that you have to replace there. But I use the field fencing, and it's 4 foot.
Is it on the inside or the outside?
And they're usually 4 by 8. 4 by 8. Okay.
How do you attach it basically? So on the outside of the tub or the inside?
No, it's right here. There's a little hole that I've drilled right here in 3 different places.
Right.
And I just set it on there Mine are 10 squares around, so I cut it 11 and then used that last one to kind of fold it back to make it,
So it's like on top of the tub.
it's on top. And I've got a couple pictures we'll look at in just a second. Some of them are a little bigger because at the beginning I don't know what I was doing, but bigger is better. Some of them are bigger, some of them actually go down lower, so I have to have Joe come out and help me hold them up while we try to twist tie them, or pull tie, whatever you call it. But that's how I do it. Now, they do have different grades of this landscaping fabric, and I know that at the class Kim and I went to, she used the professional grade, which I found some that's kind of woven. It's not this, this is more like cloth, but they do have some that's woven. The only thing is with the woven, it is more expensive, but it seems to shred or, I don't know. I think it's a really good sturdy stuff, but it just ravels a lot. Yes, ma'am.
I have gotten information about some landscape fabric. This is from Sam's Wholesale, and I ordered it. And it's 4 feet, about 225 feet. The roll was $33. The shipping made it $42. That's a lot cheaper than Tractor Supply.
Yeah,
And I put it out on the ground at home and planted some onions in it, and it is great.
And that's from Sam's?
From Sam's Wholesale, I ordered it. You
Wow.
wouldn't think they would carry something like that, but it's their, their members mark landscape fabric.
Well, and I think somebody, and I don't remember who I was talking to recently, they said there's a place over in Bryan College Station, and y'all may know about the place. And it might have been Tractor Supply. They actually carry it in the bulk, and you can buy it by the yard or by Producers Co-op. Producers Co-op. And you can buy your landscaping fabric there. If you just want to try one or two and not have a whole roll, it might not be something that I don't have to weed. I had, last year I used marigolds and I didn't have any kind of worms or any kind of wild stuff eating the leaves of my tomatoes or peppers. I don't think I even put 7 dust out any at all last year on any of my containers. I just didn't have a problem. And I didn't have a whole lot of problem even with birds eating the tomatoes. We got lots of tomatoes, so, and a ton of peppers. I mean, my pepper plants were huge. Yes, ma'am.
One caution, if anybody's thinking about using composted hay, just be sure that there was no herbicide used in growing that hay, because that stuff persists and vegetables are very sensitive, especially tomatoes.
Yes,
So,
and you can find out.
It's hard to find good hay that hasn't been chemically treated.
Yeah.
So just be cautious about that.
Ask the person you're buying your hay from. That's one thing we do know, is that our hay has not been chemically altered or used any of that kind of bad stuff on. We know the hay men that we buy from, so. And normally, if we're having to buy extra hay for whatever reason, we do talk to them before we purchase it. I know some you can't, but some you can kind of control as to, thank you for bringing that up, Natalie.
Seeds are herbicides.
Also, I put a couple on YouTube, or there's like 3. Arms Family Homestead is who I went to before I met Linda, or before I knew something was going to happen with this kind of thing. But he refers to this Leon Slump as who he followed or repeated after. And I do think that Linda has seen these, but it's a lot like what I've demonstrated and what Linda does at hers. Linda does have a Saturday seminar coming up. I believe it's a Saturday week. And I believe you get to go home with a tub and everything that's here. except for the soil. She didn't give us the soil, but it's $40 to register, and she does want you to call and make a reservation. She's got plenty of room, but I think she'd like to know who all's coming. But it is a great seminar to go to if you're interested.
So where's it gonna be?
Oh, it's out on Highway 7, about 12 miles.
It's on the Master Garden Facebook page.
I just posted it again.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
It has a directory on the.
It's got her address.
But we have encouraged her to come, but there's some health issues with the family and different things. So things haven't worked out for her to become a Master Gardener yet, but I think she will eventually. But it's all I'm going to, and I'll show you some pictures right quick, kind of show you how I set mine up. It's kind of a lot like how she had set hers up. This is the fertilizer, of course, everybody knows. And these are the sea minerals that I get from Amazon. But it's just regular stuff I picked up either at Bobo's or Tractor Supply or Walmart or Lowe's.
What all is in the sea, what minerals? What's all in the sea minerals?
You know,
I'm wondering if
I think it's a bunch of crushed bone and seashells is what I think it is.
so probably a lot of calcium.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what it is. And I don't know why it's so hard to find, but I just finally found some on Amazon and ordered it. And
It
it's,
sounds like maybe you could use, if you've got chickens, use eggshells.
oh, maybe for the, because that would be the calcium. So yeah, I believe and like I say, it's real hard to read on here, but it seems like it was seashells and some bone and different stuff. And then the lime and the gypsum, and it's just black and regular. And then these are the 2 oatmeals. I think I got those at Lowe's. The pipe, I showed a picture of it that is like 21 inches, but it really all depends. I mean, if your pot is only, if it's 2 or 3 inches shorter than this, you don't want a whole big. I mean, I guess you could have that much. It's up to you, whatever your preference is on the PVC. But mine are about 1 inch. These are mine from last year. These are tomatoes, and there's just a ton of tomatoes. And this is one of the cages that actually fits kind of on the inside. I didn't make it hardly big enough. And then that had some lettuce growing in it, and then my marigold. This is peppers, and this is one I had used an old tomato cage that we had bought, or maybe my dad made or something. But it just wasn't big enough. And my tomatoes and pepper plants, the stalk or the actual stems got to about maybe 1.5 inch, 2 inch diameters before the real bad freeze this year. And when all the trees iced over it, that's when everything left.
Did you get a lot?
Pardon me?
Did you get a good production?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got plenty. Now this is one that's a little too big. And then you can see where the twist ties are. And I believe right here is a pipe. You can't see the pipe in this one, the pipe there, and then the pipe, and pipe. So I have them all facing each other, and then the holes, so that way when I go all the way to the end and come this way and water them, I can, it's really easy. I don't have to kind of hunt around. But this one fits a little better than this one. This one's a little big, but maybe this was the first one I made, I don't know. But yeah, there's lots of peppers. I think I had a couple pepper plants in one of them, mainly tomatoes. I really didn't know because I didn't start early enough last year. But that's strawberries from this year, and this is what it looks like. I planted mine kind of after Linda. She put a bunch of black, real heavy plastic. I don't know what you call it, but it's just a heavy plastic, and I just covered the ground, tried to smooth it the best I could, but I think I didn't do a very good job there. And then I just lined them up. I think I have 6 or 8 in a row. And these are the strawberries growing this year. And here's the twist ties again. This is another one that's a little big, but and you can see this
How
is
many rows
one
do you
row.
have? Sorry, how many rows do you have?
I have 1, 2, 4 rows,
So about 24.
24, but I have a total of 32 I can plant. But I haven't planted my tomatoes yet. I'm waiting for the sale. I've got them ready. This is, I think, cauliflower, and it's doing okay. I've never done cauliflower before, so, and they were sending it back at Centerville Feed the other day, so I bought some to see what would happen. And broccoli. And this is the little thicker type, but I prefer the thin wall type. It just is a little easier. And you can trim these off when you go out and do your fencing. There's some onions. I think I got these at Bobo's at the rose sale or the trees, one or the other. But they were a little small, and I think they're going to be okay, but they're just a little small. But you can kind of see the rows, how I've kind of lined them up. I've got two rows over there that I walk up and down, and these 2 over here that I walk up and down. I haven't had any problem with deer yet, and the deer do come into the backyard, but maybe with the cages it kind of deters them, I'm hoping, because they are in the backyard all the time. And when I planted in the ground or on the ground, they would eat everything but the potatoes. So I didn't cage my potatoes, but I've caged everything else as soon as I put it up, and if it's got some green on it, I've caged it and tried to, I'm sure we'll put some kind of little fence or something around it, and then I do want a small greenhouse eventually, but anyway, but yeah, that's, and you can do the gardening in the 5-gallon bucket with just one of the black pipes. If you just want to do small for one person, or, you know, if you just want to try something out, it can be done in the 5-gallon buckets with just one piece of the PVC, one piece of the black corrugated pipe and the PVC. You might want to use a smaller diameter on the black PVC, or use some water bottles or soda pop bottles, you know, a 2-liter bottle, a couple of those, whatever would stand, just so it's open at both ends, so the water can kind of run through and that kind of thing.
May I ask a stupid question?
Nothing's a stupid question.
When you put the black corrugated pipe in the bottom, what's its purpose again?
Well, you're going to fill it 5.5 inches of water,
Correct.
so you don't want any dirt down in that water, because you want that water to wick up into your soil that's above. And this fabric is sitting on that black to keep that soil up above. It's still going to kind of get down in there, you know, on the sides and kind of make its way around, but it's going to pretty much hold it up. And then each year, you're going to add probably, my pots from last year, I've repotted those already, and I believe I added 5 gallons of the soil and compost to each one to fill it back up. So I did use a whole bag of this. You don't empty it out every year unless you might see that it's diseased, or, you know, if you see something that maybe doesn't look real good. And then if for some reason your bucket cracks or you have a hole in it, you are able to, you have to have a little bit of help, but because this is so long, you can still get a hold of it and kind of just put this all together and be able to pull it up and go ahead and set it in another one, repair your bucket, and then you can still use it. So you don't have to throw it away just because it got cracked or something. You can use probably Flex Seal,
You
or
could use a solder iron and now you can take your stuff out.
that's right. Yeah.
That plastic.
So anyway, but yeah, that's what I've started doing. I found it very convenient, very easy. I'm not having to get up and down, so my arthritis isn't flaring up the way it was in the past.
Question, at the end of the class, can you lay everything out in the row?
Sure.
Did it so on the counter, so we can take a picture?
You sure?
With our phone?
Sure, not a problem at all. I really didn't know what to add to this, but I do know that the YouTube, this Arms Family Homestead, this guy is the craziest guy you'll ever meet, or never meet, or whatever. But he's really thorough, and his tubs are all red. So anyway, but yeah, you're more than welcome to come up here, look at it, whatever you want to do. But